upper school art students, welcome to our virtual art class. Today I'm going to get you started on the Three Crosses project. I'm actually sitting at my drawing table in my art studio, and I hope that you also have a place to spread out your art supplies and be creative in your home. I have experimented with actually 4 different medium that you might have already on hand, and just played around a little bit with the different ones for this Three Crosses project. 2 of them are dry media, so actually have crayons and colored pencils. Of course, my favorite are the colors, but anything that you have on hand, just plain old Crayola markers or any kind of markers that you have, thin or thick, and then watercolors. So what I want you to use, this came home with your art projects, just a little image inspiration, and 2 large 18 by 24 papers were folded into your bags. So if you want to half one of those to make it a 9 by 12 and then half it again, so they would look like this, 2 sheets from a 9 by 12. That way you can have 2 to play with, maybe do 2 pieces of artwork for the 3 crosses. You're going to want to decide how you would like the crosses to be. I've done a couple different ones, straight on or slanted. So I've done a couple of different kinds. So let me talk a little bit about the medium. This one is all wet media. This side here was using watercolor paints, and then this side was actually using markers that I dipped the tip in water and then brought it to the paper. Also, I used a brush to wet the paper first. So I dipped my brush in water, and then I wetted the paper first. This is actually just cardstock, which is fine, but I think your paper is going to do much better than this. And I played around. These are purely experiments, but I thought it was really interesting that you could use the Crayola markers for watercolors. You can also go back in and do striation with the clouds. I really want you with this art project to be as creative as you can. Try some different things. You might want to do some things in your sketchbook or some scratch paper, kind of like I did. This is actually 4 up on a 9 by 12. So each of them is like a 3 by 4 little inset, just so I could get an idea. This one here is colored pencil, and this one is crayon. So whatever you use, I want you to set up your colors that you're thinking about trying in analogous order. Now this is a color spectrum here, but let's say that I'm just going to use these 3 colors here, which is kind of what I did here. I added a little bit of the red violet over here so it can move it. With a sky, it's really important to have colors that are next to each other on the color spectrum. This one, a whole bunch of different ones. Started with a real pretty red down here, and orange, and then yellow, and then blue, and then purple. So that really has the rainbow spectrum, except for green. You don't usually see green in a sky. So there's just a couple of thought processes here with the artwork. These are pretty luminous. And what I mean by that is they're pretty, look more like what the crosses might have looked like on Easter morning. They might have still been up. But if you want to do something more ominous, something more like this one, then that gives a totally different feel to the artwork. And the way that you're going to do that is to add black or gray. So I have, I did that a little bit in this one with the colored pencils. And so what I want to do now is I just wanted to get you started on this. So I'm just going to do it on these little, the little 3 by 4s. You're going to want to establish a ground. Shouldn't go straight across. It should have some, variation. Just make it look like, it could go either way. So I've gone, up and down, just different things. Okay, so you decide how yours is going to be. But the important thing with crosses is that the crossbars from here to here and here to here are the same distance. And this is usually double that. So that makes it look right. So you can make it thicker, but then, do the same thing. Now this one is a little bit more than twice as long, so it gives just an elongated feel. So, you can break the rule a little bit. But the main thing is that this part here and these two sides are the same length, okay? So when you're drawing, you want to start with the cross in the middle and then determine how far up you want it to be. Maybe I need to go a little darker here. Okay, so start with a line like that, and then come down. You want to work with parallel lines here. So this should be parallel to that. Okay, now you don't need to use a ruler for this. Use your eye. Okay, this is a right angle, a right angle. So these are straight on. This is what I'm doing with straight on. So to me, that looks like about the same size. And then up and down, come back to the center, and then take it down to the ground. Okay, so already I can see that mine is not as long, so I might want to make my cross go into the foreground a little bit. Okay, and then when you're establishing the other two, they're going to be smaller. I think the cross that Jesus was on typically is more prominent, and the others are just less prominent. I did use black colored pencils to do this here, but every other one, these I used Sharpie. This is watercolor crosses, and I used a dark brown foreground. So that's why I want you to play with this. This one is also just the black watercolor, and these are just quick. I didn't spend a ton of time trying to make these beautiful. I just wanted to give you some ideas. Okay, so then outline your cross with Sharpie. You can also do this after you have done your watercolor, and that's actually what I did, but I wanted to show you how you draw your cross. Okay, and you're going to color it in, and you might, look at it and go, okay, I think it needs to be a little bit longer on one end or whatever, okay? But this is how simple it is. This is a really neat project because of the starkness of the black on whatever sky you create, okay? And then here's the foreground, so I just kind of show you. So then I would put in the other two crosses and make them smaller. They can be the same thickness, or they can be thinner and smaller. Okay, play around with that. That's why I think maybe using a page in your sketchbook and practice doing crosses with that wonderful dot grid and see what you like. Okay, there's another cross. I know that's hard to see. I'll just do it over in pencil. Okay, I did it thinner and smaller, and also in the background. So that's also a choice. These are all in the background with the, and it's as if you are, you're down the hillside and you're looking up at it. And that's what's wonderful about the slanted, and that's kind of neat too. So here, let's do another one over here. Okay, so you can see. Let's make this one kind of come down and then even higher up here, just for variety. Okay, so with a slanty one, you're still doing an up and down vertical line. Okay, this is another way to do it. But the top is going to slant. Okay? So up and down, slant, bring it down, sketch it lightly. I'm trying to do it a little darker so you can see. Then you're going to slant. So what this slant, you've already determined your slant. So when you come down, this crossbar has to have the same slant. Okay, so it looks right. So I'm just going to kind of, I'm thinking about the same amount here. Now, this is going to be parallel to your vertical lines. And then you're going to keep that parallel slant and come over here, and that's up and down as well. Okay, so that's how you get a slant. Now, obviously, you're going to color it in. You're not going to have that box in the middle, but that is one way to keep the parallel lines and also see that you've got it. So you slant the tops. You slant basically all the horizontal lines, and you are vertical with the vertical lines. Okay. All right. Let me show you a couple techniques now with the tools that I have. For instance, I've got my Prismacolors. What I did in this was to take it on the side. So sharpen it. You know, have enough of an edge where you can come in here and maybe establish. You know, I'm going to make it even like darker, okay? You're establishing just a part of the sky. You know, your sky does not have to look like a beautiful sunset. You want it to be. So do you see how I'm sort of sketching with it and I'm pushing down a little bit? You know, it's going to be lighter if you just do it lightly. It's going to be more, you know, hue in there if you do it darkly, okay? So let's try that here so you can see. I'm going to want to come, you know, near the edge of my paper, okay? Maybe on the top. Now this is a really vivid blue. It's cobalt. Okay, so maybe I just put some of that in. Then I come to the blue violet that's next to it. Okay, now see how pretty that is. You want the darker colors pretty much to be in the top of the sky. Okay, but so you're sort of establishing some atmosphere. Okay. And play around. You know, you can leave white spaces, you can leave light spaces. Okay, now here's just regular violet. And see when you go over some of your things and how lightly you can do it. Okay, so you can, this will not show up on the Sharpie. You can go right over it. Let's say that we want to get some red violet in there, okay? You know, get some, all right, see how lightly, but then look how dark. And if you do some circular, then you can almost get some wind swirls, okay? Just try some things. All right, the next thing, I mean, good old Crayola crayons, right? That's what I did over here. Same thing, okay? Take it. Now, I mean, you could do a lot of, you know, things with the point, but I don't think that's as effective. Okay, so here, you know, I'm kind of swirling a little bit, or I'm getting some of that square edge here. Okay, so what I did over here, I had blues, violets. Okay, what would happen if you took in like an orange, you know? So, you know, use your tools creatively. I know you can't see that in the picture. There we go. I mean, and bring your color all the way down here, because you're either going to, here I did a Sharpie line here, but this is all crayon. This is black crayon here. This is black colored pencil completely. I didn't use any Sharpie in this one. So it's a much lighter look. I think the Sharpie is really effective. Okay, so let's try the wet medium. You know what? I'm just going to turn this one over so we can use the other side. So I have a couple paint brushes. I mean, hopefully you've got some watercolor paints, just some old ones, and if not, actually let me show you the what happens with the when you dip. Okay, so here's my water glass. Look what happens when you dip the tip of a Crayola marker in. Okay, now that is on dry paper, okay? That's what it looks like with dry paper. What happens if you take this and you wet your sky? You wet the whole, all the way down to the ground, okay? But also see how it's taking the, so that was dry, now I'm taking it across. Crayolas are actually pretty cool. But you know, you're making them wetter than they normally are, so you don't just have lines on your picture, you have a wash. You're looking for a wash. So let's try that again. Okay, let it, you know, and adding more water with your paintbrush. And then let's try another color. So I've got these all set up. Let's do blue. Okay. See what happens. Now, if you have watercolors, I mean, this is a totally different look than the watercolors. But play around, okay? That's just so fun. I did not know that markers would do that until I tried that last night, okay? So now I have a palette here of watercolors. You know, really, I only used a couple. Let's wet the just an area of the sky here. So basically, you're doing a wet watercolor on wet paper. That's wet on wet. Okay. Let's try one like a vivid crimson. And maybe it's down here, okay? And then rinse out your brush, and then maybe more of a red, and then we're going to go into orange, and okay. Okay, so you know it'll start to, so because you wet your paper, let's go to sort of a real orange here. So get enough water on there so that, okay. Okay, now so orange sort of just took over, didn't it? But you can keep adding, and if you need to, keep, you know, oh yeah, just adding more water. And you can always go back to that, you know, whatever color you really loved. I love that one. Add that back in, okay? And then smooth it out. So that is watercolor technique. Now, it doesn't have to be so beautiful and striated. What happens if you, let's take a deep purple. Okay. What happens if we, you know, give it like some, you know, like it's the sky is moving, okay? It's got, you know, clouds, and how about if we go with a midnight, a dark blue, okay? Okay, so you can have movement. Oh, and the other thing now is when these are dry. Okay, I just used that side. Let me put something in. Let me put a paper towel underneath those. You can go back in. Oh gosh, look, you can see my wetness now through the sky. Oh, that's kind of a neat look, actually. Okay, now so that's called serendipity. That's when something you did not intend happens. So wetting the other side of your paper will, you know, it's just coming, it's spotting, okay? The other thing that you can do, obviously, is splattering. It's getting a little bit of paint. I don't really want to do that all over the computer here, but I mean, getting a little bit of paint and then taking your brush and, you know, flicking it a little bit. Just make sure that whatever, you know, you've got protection around your area, okay? Then that gives it some personality. What I was going to say is the other thing that you can do is to go back in and use colored pencils or crayons on your wet media. You know, what happens if you want to use, you wanted to have some streaks in the sky, okay? So use your, you know, white. See? That was on the marker one that I did. So once it dries, then you can add in with other things. So hopefully that gets you started. And you know how to make crosses. Maybe use your sketchbook to do that. Remember to half your paper. I'm going to upload this in the Google Classroom after I get it up into YouTube, and hopefully this will help you. I hope you have a great day. I miss you.